Hello, you're watching Lithuanian television. On Special Investigation Today, we are covering the death of a young girl in a new car. An animal ran into the road, but not a single airbag deployed. Actually, there should have been 8. When does a new car become a hearse? Toyota has a reputation for making the most reliable cars in the world. I bought a brand new car with the highest safety ratings, and it became my daughter's coffin, says Virginijus Šleikus, a Pakruojis district resident. None of the 8 airbags deployed during the terrible crash. The tragedy has highlighted a problem. What guarantees are there that a trip in a new car, bought from an official dealer, won't be your last? Victoria, Virginijus's daughter, was supposed to celebrate her 21st birthday on the 20th of August. Her parents planned to host an unforgettable birthday and farewell party for Victoria, a third-year philologist at Vilnius University who was going to study in Spain. I made great plans. We built a bouncy castle. I invited some musician friends, even booked a small airplane for people to go up in. I planned archery tournaments, tours of Rokiškis Museum and Rokiškis Church. I arranged everything with the museum staff and tour guides. It was going to be an impressive party. A village community celebration was supposed to take place at the same time, with 3 communities coming together. We prepared everything, even fireworks at midnight. In the end, we had the fireworks on the 20th and streamed them live at 4 o'clock, the time my daughter was born. Virginijus set off the fireworks in his daughter's honor after her funeral. This is probably the worst thing that can happen to a parent. A brand new car became my daughter's coffin, says Victoria's father today. If at least one of the 8 airbags had deployed, I could come to terms with all the consequences of the crash, he says. Not having recovered from the horror he experienced, Virginijus is making every effort to discover why a new car, bought from a showroom, became a deadly trap. Yes, I killed her. I was driving. This is the site of the accident. You can see skid marks all the way to the stream and uncollected car debris next to flowers and candles. They were just 20 kilometers from home. Let's go back to that day when Virginijus, with no idea what was to come, was taking his family home in his brand new car, bought just a month before, on the eve of his daughter's birthday. That day I had some business to do. I collected some parts in one company and some tools in another. Victoria worked until 5 at a private kindergarten in Antakalnis. We agreed that, after I finished my work, we would meet at our friend's place in Vilnius to collect her. We left some things with our friends as they were coming to my daughter's party the next day. We said goodbye to our friends, collected our daughter, and the 3 of us left. My daughter sat in the front next to me. My wife sat behind. Halfway down the road, Virginijus's cell phone started ringing, and he asked his daughter to drive. I said to my daughter, "Please drive the car for me for a bit, while I call my clients and employees to discuss some business." All my activities take place in Sweden. I managed to make my business calls before we got to Utena. Virginijus got back behind the wheel. I shouldn't have, he says today. We swapped, but I'm so sorry now. Maybe everything would have turned out differently if we hadn't. If she was driving, maybe that deer... Everything is a maybe now. Nobody knows how it might have turned out. I was driving from Utena, and everything was fine. We were going home up to that fateful spot. We were about 20 kilometers from home. It was still bright, no rain, the visibility was good, and the road home was perfectly familiar. It was slightly downhill. A deer runs out. I see it very clearly. How many meters in front of the car was it? Hard to say, as it jumped right in front of me. I don't know how many meters it was because I hit the brakes. I'm telling you, the brakes of the car are really effective. I braked the car. There was a big bang. My daughter shouted, "Daddy!" The hood came up and the windshield smashed. That was his daughter's last word. After that, the longest and worst moments of his life. I heard my daughter shout, "Daddy!" And it seemed to me that we were sliding somewhere for ages. When I saw the crash site, I realized we couldn't have slid for long, but it seemed like forever. I had only one thought: stop, car, stop. Then a bang, and all went silent. Virginijus broke the silence. I think my first words after the crash were, "Are you alive?" My wife said, "I'm alive." It transpired later that his wife had suffered minor injuries. Meanwhile, Victoria, in the front passenger seat, couldn't answer. We called our daughter's name and said, "Don't die." I touched her. My hands were covered in blood. I touched her head, where there was definitely a big hole. I touched everything. On the back of her head? Yes. The expert's conclusion was multiple skull fractures, I think. I was kneeling, crying and begging, saying, "Baby, my daughter, don't die." I think her lips were trembling as if, or maybe I want to think that she wanted to tell me something. And then blood came out of her mouth. The paramedics who arrived at the scene still tried to save Victoria's life. A significant detail stuck in Virginijus's memory. His daughter was hanging on her seatbelt. Usually, in an accident, seatbelts should secure a person to the seat. It seems to me that my daughter wasn't secured in her seat. She was somehow freely hanging on the belt. I know that a seatbelt shouldn't be loose, but from what I remember, my daughter was not secured to her seat. It is not only seatbelts that can save a human life. Virginijus is holding a list of this model's passive safety devices. 8 airbags are included. There were supposed to be 8 of them. I wouldn't be as angry if at least one airbag had deployed as proof that they had been installed. Why did a new car with the highest safety ratings bought in a showroom not deploy a single airbag at the critical moment? Why did the hood, according to Virginijus, open after hitting the deer? It was not the first time Virginijus had encountered an animal on the road. Why did the hood open when I hit the deer? In Sweden, I once hit a deer on wet asphalt and everything was fine. I controlled the car and the deer went into a ditch. But did you hit it? There was contact, yes. The deer hit the passenger side of the front of the car. I was driving a Volkswagen Charan then. Its airbag didn't deploy because maybe it simply wasn't there, as the car was made in 1995 or 6. I didn't make any claims, didn't try to discover why it didn't deploy. No one died. The deer hit the car and damaged it badly, but I didn't let go of the steering wheel. I'm definitely not the worst driver in the world. Before returning to Lithuania, before this accident, I drove more than 3,000 kilometers a week. I go to Sweden on business a lot. The distances are long, and I have a long driving experience. I have excellent reactions while driving. One of the most important criteria on which Virginijus bought the car was its safety. The safety of the Toyota CHR model is evaluated at 5 out of 5 Euro NCAP stars in an accident. In an impact of 64 kilometers per hour, the hood bends but doesn't open, and the airbags deploy. When a side impact is simulated, the side airbag is deployed. The car is fully safe for the driver, the passengers, and pedestrians. But crash tests are only simulated theory. What am I supposed to think about these cars? I bought it as a safe car to drive. After the accident, a pre-trial investigation was started, and the car is currently retained by the police. No one knows if this car had any airbags, if it really came from the manufacturer, or whether it had been adjusted. Many of my Facebook friends have sent me links saying that in 2016 there had been problems with these cars in the US, with this model in particular. Who can guarantee that the cars that reached our market were not the ones from the US? Today, Toyota representatives are really determined to discover the truth. They say this shouldn't happen. However, it did. It would be no wonder if the airbags didn't deploy in a second-hand car. It's an open secret that used car sellers manage not only to falsify the mileage, weld one car from 3 separate ones, but also shove deployed airbags back and turn off or take out warning lights. Seatbelts can be checked by hand, but the airbag function cannot be determined without disassembling the car. During a technical inspection, they only check if the failure warning lights are on. But heeding his and his family's safety, Virginijus bought a new car from an authorized Toyota dealer in Panevėžys. Unfortunately, I cannot comment on the accident while the pre-trial investigation is underway, the seller explained. Toyota representatives for the Baltic states are also refraining from a broader commentary, justifying it based on the ongoing investigation. However, a few days after the tragedy, they published a public statement expressing their condolences. After the accident, Virginijus asked the Toyota dealers why the airbags didn't deploy. The answer confused him. Instead of saying, "We'll try to investigate," they had the nerve to say that maybe the impact was too mild, meaning that you drove into the disaster too slowly? Yes, seemingly. The impact was too mild for the safety system to work, but sufficient to take a life? A reminder, the speed limit on the road is 90 kilometers an hour. The officers investigating also find the circumstances surprising. After impact with an animal, the car became uncontrollable and hit the guardrail, then fell into a ditch. The guardrail was damaged, the deer was dead. It transpired that no airbags deployed and a person died. The officer, who has seen many crashed cars throughout his career, has not encountered such a case before. Have you ever seen a new car smashed like this without the airbags deployed? No, I haven't. Of course, it's very hard to understand why you can't see airbags deployed inside the car. According to transport engineering experts, first-generation airbags often deployed, sometimes unnecessarily, injuring people. Systems improved, and modern car airbags only deploy under certain conditions. The airbag sensors operate from acceleration and a change in speed. So during an impact, the speed of the car changes suddenly, and the control unit assesses whether the airbag should be deployed. The airbags might not deploy if the speed is too low? Yes. There are several conditions which are mandatory, such as minimum speed or a fastened seatbelt. When installing the system, manufacturers also assess situations when the airbags don't need to deploy, because a deployed airbag means additional repair costs and possibly injuries. Remember, the speed limit is 90 kilometers per hour on the road where the accident took place. According to the expert, an impact with a deer is sufficient for the airbags to deploy. Is a collision with a deer a sufficient condition for the airbags to deploy? Yes. If the speed is sufficient, as well as the weight of the deer, then kinetic energy is created, and the impact energy is strong enough to trigger the sensors. The driver says that the impact caused the windshield to break and the hood to open. Yes. Then it's hard to believe that the sensors weren't triggered and the system didn't work. The Toyota user manual also describes cases in which the airbags may not be deployed. For example, if the car is impacted from the side at a certain angle, if the epicenter of the impact is not in the passenger zone, if the impact is indirect and the force vector runs at a sharp angle. The manual also says that the side airbags may not deploy if the car rolls during an impact to the front or rear. The location of the sensors is probably slightly lower, and maybe the body of the deer did not cause a sudden drop in car speed to reach a critical value for the airbags to work. These are possible theoretical assumptions. How can one check if the airbags installed in the car work? Associate Professor Vidas Žuraulis says that the only reliable way is to disassemble the car. However, even this does not guarantee that they will deploy at the critical moment. So, you just have to trust your guardian angel and take the manufacturer's and seller's word. I bought the car as a safe car, a new car, with the odometer reading 5 kilometers. I don't care where the sensors are. It was supposed to be safe, and the sensors should have triggered the airbags if they were there. I didn't check. I'm a driver, not a mechanic. I don't understand anything about cars. I don't have to understand. It's a tool for me. Can we be sure that a new car will be safe and its equipment remains untouched from the moment it leaves the factory? Not quite. After buying a brand new Opel from an authorized dealer, Tadeuszas, a taxi driver from Vilnius, found out that the car was repainted. The dealers later admitted it and agreed to take back the car and return the money. Vitoldas Milius, Director General of the Lithuanian Auto Entrepreneurs Association, says that minor incidents do occur when transporting new cars. For example, the body is scratched, but the buyer must be informed about this and possibly offered a discount. I've heard of various incidents. It's a fact that accidents can happen before a car is sold. For example, it could happen that the car is in the dealership's parking lot and someone bumps into it. I've heard stories where cars fell off the transporter. You have to do something with a car like that because it's still new, but the door is dented. Of course, you can repaint the doors, it will still be a new car, but with repainted doors. So should the buyer know? Absolutely. It's an issue of ethics. If you're selling a car without telling the buyer, you're deceiving them. I've had cases in which I helped a friend buy a car. The seller offered a car telling a similar story, then made a significant discount. The dented door was no longer dented. He showed photos. My friend liked it and took the discount. He didn't care about the door. Dented doors may not affect safety, but is this not a way to try and sell cars with more serious problems? A representative of a new car dealer categorically denies any possibility of local dealers deliberately cheating when selling a car with broken safety systems. If the car left the factory with airbags, nobody is ever going to meddle with them. It's complete nonsense that someone would remove them and sell them. No car dealer or new car seller would ever come up with an idea like that because it's a crime. The car trade representative says that rumors about cars of poorer quality entering Lithuania are nonsense, just like the rumors about laundry detergent or candy supposedly adapted to the taste of Eastern Europeans are not true. In this case, Toyota's warehouses are supplying the same cars for people from Sweden and Finland, and no one knows which warehouse the car comes from when ordering it. The car can just as well end up in Sweden, and nobody makes and will never make individual cars for a small country like Lithuania. That is complete nonsense. The Dieselgate scandal, when emissions data was falsified, revealed the deliberate misleading of consumers and showed that one cannot blindly trust what is officially declared in the vehicle's technical specifications. So, are new cars safe enough, as declared by their manufacturers and dealers? Are there any new cars which are completely safe? No one can say for sure. Such cars probably don't exist because the laws of physics do apply. If you try ramming into a locomotive with the very latest, safest car, you're still unlikely to come out unharmed. So no car, no amount of airbags, no system can guarantee 100% safety. However, nobody physically checks the security of new cars sold in Lithuania. Lithuanian Transport Safety Administration specialists say that the EC Certificate of Conformity is sufficient to prove that a car on the European Union market has been tested and certified. This certificate of conformity confirms that the vehicle is safe for the environment, safe to operate on the roads. Well, in this case, it's probably down to the manufacturer whether cars entering Lithuania are additionally checked, or is the document enough? In truth, it is not merely a matter for the manufacturer, because the car is tested before it enters the market. Technical services test the performance of all components to see if they meet the requirements of the United Nations and regulations of the European Union. If a vehicle or its components pass the tests, the certifying authority issues an EC type approval, and the vehicle is considered safe, in a technically good condition, and safe to use. Back at the crash site, another interesting detail emerges. The Toyota's front bumper found by Virginijus's relatives the day after the accident. Notice this writing. Why is there a number written on that part with a marker? Virginijus believes that this is how scrapyards mark used parts for sale. We found that part after the accident. It's safely stored in our home, and one sharp-sighted friend noticed it. I had put it away as part of the deadly car. Everything is on my Facebook profile. My friend had that part for a while and asked what the writing meant. I think it was 996. He said that it's a marking from a scrapyard. I've bought parts for my old work cars and have seen how parts are marked in scrapyards. Do factories mark parts the same way that scrapyards do? Did this Toyota crash before and was then repaired and sold? The investigation, which should reveal why the Toyota's airbags did not deploy and whether they were present in the car, may take up to 6 months. Over that time, thousands of Toyotas will be sold. I think the algorithms built into that model are the same as many others. It's very unlikely there was something wrong there. What measures can be taken by institutions if it turns out that it was a poor quality car? The certifying authority has systems to ensure that manufacturers apply production requirements. These include checking that the vehicle conforms to the requirements imposed at the time. If there are any discrepancies and the manufacturer does not guarantee compliance with the requirements, the certifying authority can ban the use of the vehicle and withdraw it from the market. Have there been any such cases in Lithuania? Not in Lithuania, but there have been cases in Europe. Virginijus, who lost his daughter, wants the car examination to be carried out by independent experts from abroad. He intends to fund it himself. He is offended by journalists' questions about possible moral damages. First of all, according to Virginijus, you can't even talk about damages while the investigation is underway. Secondly, it is crucial to find out the truth and draw conclusions so that more deaths are avoided in the future. First, I want to know what happened, and I want everyone to know if the car is to blame. I can't allow the death of my daughter to be meaningless. I want her death to mean something, and her memory to live on. I want someone to say about her death, "I'm sorry, we made a mistake," so that no one else dies in these cars, right? Yes, exactly. And again, this is not a question of money. I will never sell the memory of my daughter. You will never see it happen. After the segment was shot, another important fact emerged. Virginijus was allowed to examine the car together with police investigators and experts. Virginijus confirmed that at least the curtain airbags were clearly visible to him in the crashed car. Experts are further investigating why these passive safety features that could have protected Virginijus' daughter's head from impact did not work. Virginijus also saw that the pyrotechnic pretensioners in his and his wife's seat belts were triggered. These components are activated mechanically from overload. It remains unclear whether the pretensioners were triggered in the front passenger seat. This will also become clear when the car body is disassembled. Meanwhile, the airbags should have been triggered by the sensors, but this system did not work. Virginijus' primary conclusion is that the car didn't register the crash. The investigation continues.